Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Dave's Faves. And today I want to talk about Brahms Piano Concerto Number 1. Now, we've already done Brahms Piano Concerto Number 2, and the favorite there was Richter and Leinsdorf with the Chicago Symphony. We had a very stimulating conversation about the various possibilities in the Brahms Second Piano Concerto. I happen to think that our options are somewhat more limited in the first. It's a tougher piece to do, and as I said in that previous video, at one point or another, I have hated either of the Brahms concerti. I really have. I used to hate the first and really like the second, and then I really liked the first and hated the second. They're tough pieces. They really are. They're not easy listening. They are very serious, heavy-duty, symphonic creations. And the first, it seemed to me, always had the bigger hurdle to cross. First, because of the finale, which is an obvious crib from the finale of Beethoven's Third Piano Concerto in C minor. Boy, are they close. And Brahms, I know, he was paying homage. And, it's a nice homage, but, you can listen to the original. Why listen to the homage? Well, there was that. And then there was the somewhat, just heavy orchestration. Brahms struggled with this piece. He didn't even know it was going to be a piano concerto originally. And Joachim apparently gave him some pointers on orchestration. And the opening of the first movement really can sound rather silly if it isn't done with incredible fire and vigor. And usually it isn't. Usually people back off on it, which I think is a terrible, terrible mistake. And the opening theme, da da dum bum 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 bum, the trill. It's the trill that gets you. It gets you every time. It really does. It sounds silly most of the time, or it can. It doesn't have to be. It's supposed to be rage, anger, passion, intensity, but instead it just usually sounds like somebody going bah, like I just did. And that isn't what you want. It's okay when the violins do it, but when the piano does it, it's like somebody's gargling in the bathroom or something. I mean, it's a very hard piece to characterize to the full. And it requires a pianist who can do it and a conductor who can do it. And they have to do it equally. And they have to be together on it. So I think perhaps initially in my life, I heard a lot of fairly not good performances of this concerto, of which there is certainly no shortage. However, the one that I love, the one I reach for, is good old Serkin and Szell. Because Szell owned the accompaniment to the first piano concerto. He was one of the great Brahms one accompanying guys. He did it at least 3 times. There's Clifford Curzon on Decca, there's this one, and there's Leon Fleischer, and they are all fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. And Serkin actually did this a few times too. He did one that's just as good with Eugene Ormandy, I have to say. Sometimes I grab the wrong one and I'm just as happy because Ormandy was also a great accompanist and he had the fire in his belly to carry off this work, if without quite the wiry, hard-edged ferocity of Szell, but it's awfully close and there's nothing missing in Ormandy's accompaniment either. But I just think that Szell had such an identification with the accompaniment to this concerto, and it's so important. And then there's Serkin. You know that Serkin and Szell were schoolmates back in Vienna. They knew each other from like way back. And I think that may be one reason why they got along so well. I mean, they were approaching the music from a very, very similar aesthetic viewpoint, and that is one of great suppressed passion that erupts periodically. Serkin was very much like Szell. When Szell was asked why his Mozart didn't sound warm and fuzzy like Bruno Walters, he said, "I can't put chocolate sauce on asparagus." And Serkin was a pianist like that too. He was known for having a somewhat flinty tone. He wasn't a sensual pianist. He was a line guy, a contrapuntist. He was into clarity. Of course, he had a variety of touch, but essentially, Essentially, he was into shaping things in large paragraphs and having an overall conception of the form of a work or of a movement. And so was Szell. They really, really were good together. I really believe that. I hear a total identity of aim between the soloist and the conductor in this performance, which is really very, very special in my view. And I really think that, especially as you get further into the first movement, when the interchange between the piano and the orchestra starts to get really, really close-knit, you really just hear this wonderful, wonderful symphonic conception, with neither part necessarily being more important than the other. They get along, they don't get along, they cooperate, they argue, but it's just splendid to hear them do it. It really is. And I think that if you don't know this performance, you're missing something. There are other very, very fine performances. There's Joachim and Gilels, and there's the new Nelson Freire, the Gewandhaus, and Schei, which is just amazing. There really is. I mean, there are plenty of good Brahms first piano concertos now. There really are. But I just think for the cogency of the overall interpretation, that Serkin and Szell are really, truly special. And I keep coming back to this performance after hearing new ones, some of which I like very much, some of which I like less. But they really are some great ones out there. This one always strikes me as having an almost perfect balance between solo and orchestra, and a totally unified concept of what the piece wants to do. And I adore it for that reason, and I hope you will too. So keep on listening, friends. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care.